Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV.
Undoubtedly, Africa is the best tourism destination on Earth. The continent is blessed with the most conducive atmosphere. To feel and enjoy these blessings, join the most productive one-week tour of the continent organized by Daylight Africa every September 2nd to September 9th to see beyond the fallacies about Africa on the mainstream media. Contact us at daylightafrica@gmail.com or call 718-822-5555. Daylight Africa. Revolutionizing tourism industries in Africa.
Hello, welcome to Parrot TV's World Inkers Network program. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have Carlo Parcelli and Frederic Iriarte and from Sweden. And you know Carlo from the Foreign Policy Review, another program that we have here at Parrot TV. So let's get started with our discussion, and we're going to discuss Transgressive Poetics, the album that was released by Frederic in his program. And we're going to also probably get into some politics, so be prepared for our discussion to be pretty broad, and definitely going to be enjoying this. And so welcome to the program, you guys. How are you guys doing today?
We're good. I am.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about your collab. You know, this is a very interesting collaboration, Transgressive Poetics. What is the meaning of transgressive? And what was the process like for you guys in collaborating with putting the spoken word album together?
Well, let me just say that the transgressive end of it is that for the first, say, 30 or 35 years of my writing, I was trying to demonstrate the basis, the absolute foundation for global climate change and nuclear weapons. And it was the conclusion I came to was very transgressive, that it was the systems of quantification, the best examples being the calculus by Leibniz and Newton, and this extreme acceleration of the use of mathematical symbols and mathematics to determine what was real and what was not reality, to really take over the role of what was real and not reality. So I did that for 35 years, and I was ridiculed for basically everything I did, though there was some admiration for the fact that I was using Ezra Pound's canto style to make these things interesting. But about 13 years ago, I began writing these series of dramatic monologues based on poetry I greatly admired from a Welsh English poet named David Jones, who wrote two epic poems, In Parenthesis and Anathemata. And they're dramatic monologues, and each one of them contains very transgressive ideas. For example, just one example, I have one of the monologues is in the voice of Walt Whitman's major lover. And his name is, for some reason, I think his name was Peter Boyle, but it escapes me. Oh, Doyle, Peter Doyle.
Yeah.
And it's and it sets out to prove that Whitman is not the poet we think he is. And I can't think of another more transgressive example, because I have not run into, in my long life of being around thousands of poets, have not heard, and not one of them criticize Whitman in the fashion I do in that monologue.
Mhm.
And so Frederic picked up on the notion of transgression and was kind enough to set a number of my monologues to music.
Exactly. In the first album we did, was called "The Tartar and Other Poems and Monologues," and there is a story of Dan Doyle. The oh, I'm trying to look at, because we have been working very much together, many things. Love letter to friend, was it not?
Yes.
Peter Doyle suicide letter.
Yeah.
That's Peter Doyle suicide letter, and that's where we began to collaborate. That was the first album, and recently we did the second album. Peter Doyle is
Peter Doyle's suicide letter to Walter,
Right.
yes.
which he actually wrote, but it's not extant. But Whitman answered the letter in this frantic stop and with a frantic note to Doyle, basically, "Don't kill yourself." Um, but they were lovers for many years.
Yes, that's why. But I want to say thank you, Dustin, to inviting me. I have to be polite at the beginning.
Right.
And Carlo, it's very nice to meet you again af- after all the work we have been together. So it's very
Yes.
nice to be part of your show, and I'm very delighted and very honored to be part of it. Yes,
Wonderful to
and
have you. So tell us a little bit about the process of creating the music for this. I mean, what sort of instrumentations do you use, and about how long do you think it would take for per track or so to, to put together something that you thought fit Carlo's monologue reading style?
when I saw first time Carlo Parcelli, it was published at the National Beat Poetry Foundation, which you have a very big part of it, Carlo. I was listening. I said, "Wow, what a strong soul."
Mhm.
First, I was very impressed about how Carlo is narrative. His narratives and his presence with the words. Words they weigh, every word weighs 1,000 kilo or more. I don't know. There's very heavy words
Mhm.
all the way and very long, and never stop. It's a long story. It's going inside the other and coming on, and I was looking at Carlo. I said, "Wow, I like Carlos Parcelli's very much poetry, because he reminds me somehow of Shakespeare. I think Carlo is a new Shakespeare. It's another Shakespeare. It's not the same like Shakespeare. It's another
Right.
one. So
Transgressive Shakespeare.
yeah, I rarely read something who's comparing the past with the present, and maybe it's a future at the same time. So I
Right.
was very impressed about the heavy words over there. And then I heard his voice with a very powerful accents that I was looking it. What an
Mhm.
accent. And then I listen more and I say, wow, there is a rhythm in the poetry. So I say, tack, 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 rhythm.
Mhm.
And it is in the poetry. There is kind of rhythm I cannot explain exactly,
Mhm.
but I could get the tack. And then I got the melody too through the voice. I say, oh, well, yeah, and things like that. So there is a kind of a wave over there, so I could catch it. And then I put it together with his voice. I didn't change any rhythm of the text. I keep all the same rhythm all the way of the text and the same melody as well. And that's how we can put that some kind of illustration of the words. So if there is a boat, or you hear a boat, or if there's a water, you hear the water. If the bird is a bird, or if it's a war, it's a war too.
Mhm.
So I could catch those moments and translate it. With sounds and even some pictures too. And then I did some films too, all over the thing. But I was very impressed, and I was more impressed when Carlo wanted to do the second album. I thought, I didn't make any mistake there. Because I was afraid that Carlo will be angry on me, because I thought maybe I destroy his poetry,
Mhm.
and I was very afraid. I thought maybe gonna cut my head somehow, or I was very afraid. But somehow I give another dimension to his poetry. I
Right.
put my salto paper and everything, and I give another dimension of his poetry, because I want to make it somehow more popular. If they can't read it with their own eyes, maybe they can listen. And if they don't want to listen only to the words, maybe they more easily listen with the sound, and to make more popular. So I wanted to young people more interesting of Carlos Parcelli and other poets too. So are very strong souls, I can tell you.
His poetry seems to be kind of a, like a conquest of questioning the past, and like, I mean, he mentioned himself, like the calculus and all of Newton and Leibniz, and these guys that created our modern foundations. And so that's very interesting to go back to the foundations of modern society, modern capitalist society. Use poetry as a way and a vehicle to kind of address the issues of the times that we have brought ourselves to from these foundations, how they've led from point A to the point Z where we're at now, the breaking point. So it's very interesting, and I like that. I like that we're using poetry to do this. I mean, with Carlo's poetry is interesting in how he uses, and he's adapted his own framework for this, the monologues and things like that. I mean, obviously he borrowed those styles from other writers, but it's that's what you do. I mean, that's what makes it interesting, is that it's both tradition and avant-garde combined in a way. Questioning of the past. So that's sort of really what the meaning of transgressive seems to be. It's like, it's an old word. It goes back to the nature of the ecclesiastics saying, if you're a sinner, you're transgressing, you're going exceeding the bounds of social mores. But at the same time, now it's like it's intellectual or cultural transgression, as we were discussing at the beginning. So, Carlo, tell us a little bit about your experience in the poetry field, and where you find that the beats are sort of like one form of transgression, and your form of transgression is a little different. What makes you different? What makes you stand out?
Well, let me lead up to that. When Frederic mentioned Shakespeare, Shakespeare is very important to me, and so are the metaphysical poets, especially Alexander Pope, and the Romantics, especially Byron, the Coleridge, and I love them all. But the language, the way they present it, especially Shakespeare, is a way you can say things that you can no longer say now. That you can say you can reorient yourself within the Western aegis by using Shakespearean syntax, Chaucerian syntax. I've had people criticize my work because I've adapted my diction to the metaphysicals and Shakespeare and the Romantics. That what I feel is great, really I don't really find American poetry all that interesting, really within the British tradition. So ergo, the other thing Frederic was referencing is I read them in a Cockney accent. Now I'm no actor, and I've had British people criticize my Cockney, but I say to them, if Mick Jagger can talk in a caricature of a black Southern drawl, it's a total caricature. It's just as much an insult to black Southern musicians as my Cockney is to British Cockney people living in East End of London, or used to live in East End of London. I can do it. That's permissible, and but you can express your ideas in brand new ways if you listen closely to the music of Shakespeare. It's not the kind of syntax we get in most poetry now today. It's so much richer, and I can't break myself away from it. The transgressive question arises because you can say things that can't be said any other way, or I shouldn't say any other way, but aren't being said any other way. Every poet is sort of like on the same wavelength, and that's gotten international now. That it's become an international thing. It's navel gazing and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say things from that perspective that I can say, and I'm very pleased to say it, and and I will continue to say it. The last monologue I just finished was in the voice of Alexander Pope, and it's entitled something like Alexander Pope buttonholes Thomas Betterton at the premiere of George Farquhar's play, I think, The Devil's Mistress in 1707. So it's in the voice of Alexander Pope, but it has tremendous contemporary
Exactly.
value.
Yes, that's I saw it too, all the way.
Mm-hmm.
Just
And
briefly,
then I can relate it to my irrealism. You know, my book. Irrealism. There is another reality. The other reality. That's where we are going in parallel ways. But we met all the way. But it was parallel way. Irrealism, like you said, between science and reality, and irrealism. It's in between two. So it's the imaginations have no limits, and you use a very traditional speaking,
Mm-hmm.
which is not contemporary, but putting in it the contemporary environment,
Mm-hmm.
then it make it modern.
Right.
yeah, like in one of the monologues called "The Battle of Brooklyn Heights," the
Yeah.
character goes, "Oh, Nathan Hale, he said, I'm paraphrasing, he has one life to give for his country. I would give 10 if none be mine." So it's a joke. I would give 10 lives, but not my life. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a kind of transgressive way of looking at an individual, and it's perfect harmony with Keats's
That's
negative
the same question
capability.
like
His
today.
negative capability.
The same question like today. Same question like today. Uh, it's about this poem, about the
Brooklyn
war and
Heights.
everything. Yeah, same question today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And
right. Well,
but
yeah.
I can say it was not easy to work with your poetry, Carlo. When I hear 100 times and Google it for every words, everything. I'm not American, so I'm not so rich in the. But it was not easy for me to really put it inside the poetry, to read it and to understand every meanings and everything. I have 100 of questions, and I did ask other people, American people, what do they mean? And Debbie Thompson Kidley, I asked her about 3-4 times, what does it mean, this? Because I didn't want to ask you. I wanted to ask you somebody else to get another perspective about the thing. And sometimes it was not easy for me, really.
and and they're long and they have to be excerpted too. You can't
It, it,
possibly.
yeah.
I mean, Terrere, like the title poem in this volume,
Mm-hmm.
Terrere. I mean, people don't know about Terrere, but he was a Frenchman who had this gluttonous um, hunger, which he could not assuage, and he would eat dead animals off the street. He would eat uh, an entire leg of an ox in like one sitting. He even
Yeah.
ate an infant in Lyon.
Oh, yeah.
So he had a very strange physiognomy. His mouth was much wider than the normal human being. So much
Uh-huh.
so that people of the time, doctors at the time, said you could look down into his gullet and see
Like
all the
Gargantua, or is it like
well, except
Gargantua?
he only weighed 100 or so pounds.
Hmm.
He had such a rapid metabolism. So that's 19 pages long. You can't
Oh,
possibly go to the whole thing. But
um,
for me, it's one of my favorite ones to perform because, you would think, he became part of a carnival. So the voice of the poem the voice of the poem is from a carny barker, So it's like it works,
I'm going to go ahead and play a track from Transgressive Poetics. It's called Buenos Aires 1962.
Oh, I love that one.
Yeah, it's very short.
Robert Lowell.
A couple minutes. Yeah, and we'll let you discuss a little bit about what the process was, the meaning of the poem. So I'm going to go ahead and play that right now.
And he swears I had a hunch.
So we'll start it back over. Let's
You are one of Langley's bunch. I fear that Epiphany's going to be
I'm going to try to get it to start at the beginning.
Probably relates to be the dinner party for Malraux, where he met John Kennedy, who between hysterical calls.
Now I've got it. Here we go.
6 martinis before lunch. Fogs his specs. Throw his life akimbo just enough. I had him on a short leash, and he swears I had a hunch. You are one of Langley's bunch. I fear that Epiphany's going to be a problem, he relates to me. The dinner party for Malraux, where he met John Kennedy, who between hysterical calls from Marilyn Monroe, appeared to have read the copy of Life Studies he had sent him. Yet the next day, the president launched the 7th Fleet, the landlocked Laos. Surely no policy whim. Nonetheless, it puzzled him. And this feud, this maelstrom of history and masochism, politics and art, that so diminished the why of his poetry. And now here in Argentina, he again made acutely aware he is no man, Marx or Robespierre. That under his winter cardigan and gabardine, no revolutionary foments there, but a bloodless scene between his fractious cock and tailings of Thorazine. Little more than lull and gin laid bare. And as we wander from the Teatro Colón to the Avenida 9 del Julio to the thoroughfare with obelisk drawn as a sword as Marino rode. And so Robert draws his own from beneath his overcoat, and a myth is born. Naked, frantic as a spider, clawing the ascent of the tub. A poet, a warrior in metaphor only, and that was the rub. Found impregnable in the Austrian equestrian statue of General San Martin. Monumental statues, too masted, even for his ego. No Colonel Shaw saber at his hip, with his raw Negro troops, shaking to tear their world right side up. Just the CEO, naked, exposed, like the fly entree in the General's Plaza. Less than any Union conscript led out in the righteousness of his cause. This neotenous species, the agency had made me babysit. His high ground overrun by regret and shame and remembrance of the Union dead. The common fate he could not abide. Sought to sit astride a bronze mountain, his long arms wrapped about the General's hips, a pillion hurled toward some unquenched apocalypse.
So
Six martini before the lunch. Oh.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because that's got two voices. And sometimes I use multiple voices. The monologues are like little plays. And that's in the voice of I can't remember his name offhand. I write so much. But Lowell went to Buenos Aires in 1952 to give a series of readings, and he met Borges and that sort of thing. And he was, if you know anything about Robert Lowell, he was not only a fine poet most of the time, but he had at least 24 breakdowns in his life, nervous breakdowns. And so he goes to Buenos Aires, and he meets this man that's supposed to be his handler. Well, the guy turns out to be a CIA asset, but he actually wrote 4 novels, but he's kind of off the grid, and he worked for the CIA. So that's
Yeah.
the voice of the CIA asset, not
Uh,
not Lowell's voice. So
yeah, I catch it. I catch it. It's 6 martini before the lunch, and on the boat somehow. So the boat is floating or something like this. You get a bit sick and
Mhm.
yeah.
and
So,
meet many people like Monroe or
yeah.
American artists or actors and everything. It was many things. You know
Yeah.
the
So this guy's watching him doesn't like the fact that he has to babysit Lowell, who's having a nervous breakdown. He's
yeah
drinking heavily. He tries to climb onto statues. Every statue he sees, equestrian statue, he tries to climb up and get behind the general on the
yeah
horse and that sort of thing. And he's really sick of it. And then you get Lowell's point of view, which he sees that this guy, he susses out this guy's working for the CIA, and he's sick of being in this world where he's followed around and he's spied on because of his anti-war
yeah.
activism and poetry. So
It sounds.
it's a real it's so they get there's a kind of give and take between the two of them, but never
Yeah.
directly. It's just what's going on in both of their minds, thinking about the world of the each of the two different people, two different characters. That's
Yeah.
one of my I work so hard on that. You know, my methodology is to read. So I read Ian Hamilton's biography, and I read tons of other stuff on Lowell, even though back in when I was an undergrad, I had taken a course on Lowell. I admire Lowell. I really do. I think he's an extraordinary poet and often an extraordinary poet, kind of like Yeats. You don't want to read Yeats's early stuff, Pale Perfect Hands. You want to read the stuff after Ezra Pound got a hold of it and said, stop doing this stupid, what James Joyce called the cultic toilette. It's
Uh-huh.
like the Celtic twilight and all these Irish things. He's Joyce he just
Uh,
was having none of it. He called it he
but
called
is
it
there is comparable with
twilight.
Gonzo? With
What's that?
Gonzo, you know Gonzo, the Gonzo festival that.
Oh, right, that Whitehead puts on.
Yeah, is there something comparable with him or not? The kind of freedom, total freak. He do what he want and live like
Well,
he feels.
that's where the that's where the cultural transgression comes in. That they're culturally transgressive there. I'm intellectually transgressive. I'm not culturally transgressive. I'm always digging deep. Ron Ron tells stories about his own experience.
Yeah.
I never mention myself in any work I've ever done. I've never made an appearance.
Okay.
So on paper.
Yeah.
So it's a
Uh,
total difference. It's culture. It's what I call culturally transgressive. I mean,
uh,
excuse me, intellectually transgressive
Mhm.
as
yeah.
opposed to culturally
I
transgressive.
didn't compare to you. I did compare to the poets you mentioned it just right now.
Robert Lowell and
Oh,
Yeats.
Lowell.
Uh,
Yeah, well, Lowell is intellect. He's the intellect. He's not transgressive so much as he was. I don't know how to describe it. It's probably not fair. So, he wasn't intellectually transgressive in the way I was. His syntax was straightforward. He was when he wanted to rhyme, he wasn't writing blank verse. He was a master at rhyming, uh, and his themes are are very. He takes them down. He's very personal. What I used to tell young writers about that ask me about Robert Lowell, I say, don't try this at home because he was crazy enough. He was tortured enough to write like that. But you don't want to go there if you're not already there. One of the interesting things about Lowell is it was said that he had an imbalance of salts in his uh, in his system that affected his brain, and that treatment with lithium could have been very helpful and may have eliminated these bouts of insanity he had all of his life. But you don't want to, you can't pretend you're insane. If you're insane, you're insane, and
No,
there's so
all
much,
artists are insane.
so much real
Makes me
torment.
think of Rothke too, a little bit.
What's that?
Rothke, Theodore Rothke.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was pretty manic a lot of times. It was pretty bizarre.
Rethke, yeah, he wasn't. Rethke was so ambitious that when he sent an editor a poem, if an editor said, make these changes, he would make them so he could get published. But but Rethke, I have to say, he's one of the first, when I was in high school, he was one of the first collections I bought. I bought Rethke, T.S. Eliot, E. Cummings, and Yeats.
So,
But,
Frederic, you had a few politically
Yes.
oriented questions that you wanted to talk with Carlo about. Why don't you throw some of those at us?
Yes, but I don't know which order, but I can begin with artificial intelligence. Don't you think that they're gonna rob us our words, our pictures, our sounds, and they're already done?
yeah, no, that's, yeah. I actually know quite a bit about artificial intelligence because it played a huge role in my earlier work. And so actually, it's interesting because I was doing another program earlier today, and I was going to put this, show them this. But I can't. I have a library full of stuff like this. It's John von Neumann's theory of self-replicating automata. In other words, it's artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. It's become a fad now because companies are trying to sell this.
No, they steal. They don't steal. They steal, stealing pictures, stealing words, stealing everything from everybody. Choose the most popular. If you want 1 million listener, 1 million readers, they take the word or the sentence, put it another word, and then they own your words because they change some little thing on it. And that's why in Hollywood they are striking also, because they don't very well known actors. They use them. They put a longer nose or longer ears, and it's another actor. They don't have to pay it.
But you see, I don't know why anybody would want to use artificial intelligence for poetry, because nobody cares about poetry. I mean, what a waste of time! What a waste of everybody's time. Right. If I could count the number of people that read my work on one hand, and I'd probably subtract two. What a glorious waste of time and energy.
Artificial intelligence is only focusing on the popular works. So they use it, they change it a little bit, and they put it, they own it, like Facebook.
I've taken some time out, and I've read some of the poems. I was reading one the other day, and the first quatrain, and it was going along. It made sense, but it was soporific. It was stupid is I think the word I'm looking for. The ideas were stupid. The sentiment was stupid. But the guy needed the artificial intelligence needed a rhyme with sash. So it came up with pash. So I said, pash. I've never heard of pash. No. Well, it's P-A-S-H. Well, it's not a word in English, but it does. It is an acronym for a cancerous skin disease, which was so inappropriate for what was going on in the poem. I said anybody with half a brain would go, this is the person that wrote this doesn't know what they're talking about, or it's artificial intelligence. So I don't get it. If I had any kind of artificial intelligence, thing to do with artificial intelligence, poetry would not be what I would do. That would be the last thing. It's like in that movie, Natural Born Killers, when Mickey turns to his girlfriend Mallory, who says, "We're going to shoot our way out," and he turns to her and he goes, "That's poetry. We'll do that when all else fails." That's how I feel about poetry.
Yeah, same for art, but they're going after popular poetry, popular art, popular music. They go after that. If there is 100,000 people that like it, this one say, this is popular. So we use it, and then we change it a little bit so that people, they don't, I'm not interested about free souls, about unicity. They don't want something unique. No. They want something popular.
Right.
Well, I don't even know how the algorithms work.
Mm-hmm.
But you write 3 words and they make a picture of it.
Mm-hmm.
You don't even need to write 3 words. They can find your 3 words too.
Yeah. So
Right.
that form of artificial intelligence,
I see it's a big threat for the cultural expression. That's what I see. Artificial intelligence, it's a rape.
well, what really concerns me about artificial intelligence is this estriol. These are the Silicon Valley billionaires who
Yeah.
are really looking for their taxpayer money, who say that what they want to do is they want to transpose human beings into digital form. In other words,
Yeah.
no human form. We're all basically digital form, existing only in computer programs, and
Yeah.
that they can make us we can live forever, and we'll have a kind of happiness. It's so crazy. I don't even this guy Richard Schmidt. I mean, it's legion, because there's a lot of AI money against
Mm-hmm.
about it.
Yeah.
See, back in the old day, there was 2 kinds of artificial intelligence: strong artificial intelligence and weak artificial intelligence. Well, strong artificial intelligence fell apart. Marvin Minsky, he said the brain is a meat machine. Hey, he's wrong. John McCarthy said, my thermostat has 3 beliefs. It's too hot in here, it's too cold in here, it's just right in here. It's like the three bears or something. And that was stupid, because if your thermostat has belief, it has a religious bent to it, because that's what belief is. It's belief. It's understanding without proof, or acceptance without proof. So they're idiots. Norbert Wiener, cybernetics, stupid as the day is long, but they got a lot of money. I mean, Barrow and Tipler, anthropic cosmological principle. Then Tipler writes The Physics of Immortality, in which he claims, through his mathematics, in the book, he's demonstrated how and there's going to be a singularity, Ray Kurzweil's singularity, and every human being that's ever been buried is going to rise up again, just like the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And he's talking about angels, and I'm reading this stuff, and I'm going, and you fuckers are criticizing Stanley Fish? You guys are nuts. And they are. They're crazy people, and they get hundreds of billions of dollars. They get millions, hundreds of billions of dollars. Aubrey de Grey. Everybody's going to live to 160, because Aubrey de Grey has this plan of substituting each organ as it fails with an artificial organ. You get $300 million from the government. Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Dustin, what do you think about this?
We can talk for a year.
I was asked. I did a presentation for English and Foreign Languages University in India a few months back, and somebody asked, "What do I think of AI and it's the future of art?" And I said, I don't think anything can replicate human intelligence with the spontaneity and the passion and all of that an AI bot could do. And so I think that art is fundamentally a human activity. I don't think AI could really do what we can do artistically. And I mean, maybe it can do some pretty impressive things, but I don't think it can replicate our intelligence the way we like some of these guys think. Some of the guys Carlo mentions, the theorists behind AI. I don't think we understand at the process we're at. We don't understand human cognition well enough to replicate it in a machine, and we don't even know what it is exactly. So I don't think we do. I mean, that's from my understanding is that there's a lot of questions about that.
Our cognition is so wrapped up in things like taking a shit. So when you get a computer that has to take a shit, a runny shit at 1:30 in the morning, and he's going to have that feeds back. There's a feedback loop, to use their own phrase. There's a feedback loop into cognition when you have to take a shit, or when you fuck. There's a feedback loop in it, and that's part of your cognition. I've never read about a computer being programmed to take a runny shit. When I hear about that computer, we
Yeah.
can talk about AI being on the level of human cognition. Before that, shut the fuck up.
And I think it's hard for a person to create something that replicates that person when that person doesn't understand its processes fully as much. I think I'm kind of agnostic on that issue. Like, it's like, I don't really think we understand enough about ourselves to create a replication of ourselves that could do what we do. I mean, a lot of what we do is natural to us. And I know, and it's like, you want to say like art is a human activity, but it's also an animalistic activity, because birds create, beauty in their nest to attract mates and to do things, to make beauty. So, I mean, it's like beauty is just a natural thing. Even at these bots, if they take over the world, they're going to create beauty in some way, but they're not going to do it, because I don't think they're going to do it. I mean, that's like something that I'm passionate about is humans are part of the nature, and we can create things that are tools for our well-being, but I don't think that we will create something that will replace us, that comes from us. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
No, that's really comfort me very much what you were telling, because I actually threatened. I hate artificial intelligence, or I feel threatened. So
Yeah.
but it really comfort me that you say art is natural and it will never be done by a machine.
See, but I always said, and this back 50 years now, I would tell my wife, it's not so much that robots they're making robots that they can think like humans. It's that they're making humans think like robots.
Right. It's feeding back to us.
Yes.
There's that whole rumor that going around about the morality of these machines that they're gonna imitate us, and if we don't learn to cooperate and be kinder to one another, they're gonna turn against us. Which is interesting, because it's like we've created something that's gonna domesticate us. It's like we become its pet, in a way. It's pretty fascinating to me how that feedback loop is. Carl mentioned the feedback loop. It sort of feeds back to us, in our behavior. And teaches us, we're looking at something that's like us and enough like us that it's like us and it's not like us at the same time. So we kind of have something to compare and contrast with, and it feeds back to our behavior and makes us think a little more deeply about how we behave. I think that's more like what we'll see in the future. Hopefully, if technology processes work, we'll see a better future instead of a worse one. I think. I mean, I hope. Then I don't think they'll take over our world and destroy us. I hope not. I'm more concerned with global warming and climate change. Things like that destroying us than
nuclear weapons. But AI did enter in my pre-current poetry when I was using Pound's canto style. AI did enter very heavily, especially very heavily as a third element that was destroying the world. And there are dozens of quotes from different that's a 110-page poem. There's dozens of quotes counter with it, basically arguing against each other. With Pound's layering, you have a quote here and then you layer it with something else. You form a dialectic, and that poem it's only been published online, never been published in book form, but it creates a dialectic between the people like John von Neumann and all these proponents of strong AI and all the arguments against it. And there's some very good arguments against it. Anyway, that's a big topic.
Do you have another question, Frederic?
We can move on.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more questions.
Let's go with one more. We're past our time limit, but let's just go a little bit of more time. I think we can do one more
about
question.
NATO. Sweden is trying to go into NATO, and have been no war alliance in 250 years, and now suddenly they want to go to NATO. All the cultural money in Sweden is going to the war machines. There will be no more cultural grounds or other things, because all the money go to the military. And even in France today, they double up the NATO money in France. today, double up the money for the war. And now in Sweden they still dealing with the NATO to get the alliance, and then at the same time they're burning Quran and Bible and everything in Sweden at the same time. Yes. So shall we burn books? Shall we begin to burn books, or to go against NATO?
Well, that's I know a lot about this because I deal with it every week. Um, um, look, Sweden, it's very foolish for them to want to join NATO, because frankly, this I can convince anybody in 2 minutes that if Russia was provoked into going into Ukraine. First of all, you have the Maidan coup of 2014, which was engineered by the United States. You have 3 attempts to come to some agreement. You have the 2 Minsk Accords, and you have the accord that was hammered out in Istanbul, Turkey. And all 3 times, the United States and Great Britain stepped in and said, Zelensky, you cannot sign these accords. You cannot stop the war. You can so that's going on. The Donbass has been shelled. This is part of Ukraine. Has been shelled since 2014, right after the U.S.-led coup that overthrew Yanukovych, and the coup was backed up by Ukrainian Nazis, Banderites.
Yeah.
There are thousands of Banderites.
Yeah, but nobody cares about it at this time. Nobody cares about this at this time.
Yeah.
Really.
Well, nobody knows about it because the U.S. media is propagandizing everybody, and it goes on and on. The U.S. and 11 other European countries, when Gorbachev was negotiating, tearing down the wall and all that with the West, he was promised that NATO at that point would not move 1 inch further toward Russia. Not 1 inch.
No.
Not 1 inch. Now there's 14 new countries, and you've got Finland, Latvia, anyway, the 3 little
but they have their own culture.
They're all on the border of Russia, and Ukraine has a long border with Russia. It's like William Burns, our own CIA director, and said it a few years ago. He said, the U.S. CIA director, he said, when the Russians say don't go into Ukraine, niet means niet, no means no. That's the last straw. So they pushed. There's a dozen other bullshit things. There's the PNAC right in their core document. They say one of their goals is to break up Russia into smaller republics so they can control them. And one of the ways to do that, and this is in Zbigniew Brzezinski's book, The Great Game. One of the ways you can do that is to get Russia tied up in a war with Ukraine, because you can weaken Russia that way. Well, they fucked up because Russia proved a lot stronger economically and militarily. So
But I think it's your problem. It's your American problem. Yeah, in Sweden, in Europe, they don't want wars. They just want to collaborate, have peace, and have a nice collaboration. I can mention that today I show one video with Rich Ferguson in Berlin, in Switzerland, which is called A Peace Letter to Ukraine. There is about, and he has been showed in Los Angeles at a digital museum in Los Angeles last year, and this year now, today in Berlin and in Basel in Switzerland. We try with art to put peace on all of this, not to put oil or benzene on the fire. We have to find a solution to bring people together somehow. And I think the culture have a very big meaning of it. Not put oil, but to put cotton and to put it down all the tension. because burning books and Bible and Quran, it's not sweet, and to make war, it's not sweet.
That's the other consequence of this. Europe is going fascist. The United States is going fascist.
Yeah,
Because of the U.S. meddling.
India too.
U.S. meddling.
Sweden,
It's going fascist.
Spain, France,
Spain, yes.
Italian.
Well, there's a coalition of sorts. I want to say Steve Bannon's behind a lot of the
Good get. I
Yeah.
just heard his name mentioned in connection with oh God, what was it? Oh, with these strong AI guys. That was scary.
Wow.
But you're right. Bannon is
He's international. He's
he's
definitely
using the
international.
immigration crisis
Mhm.
that's being created around the world and Ukraine
Mhm.
to foster.
But
his-
what about bombing a nuclear factory? Is it good for environment?
Well, they haven't bombed it yet. The Ukrainians have not bombed it yet, and I doubt they will. Now, I will say that when Britain introduced depleted uranium bombs, that is the tips on them to add extra weight because it's hot, very dense material.
Yeah.
Then they sent those depleted uranium bombs to Ukraine. The Russians bombed this munition plant where they were storing them, and that released some dirty radiation. Now,
Yeah.
now look at what the Russians did. They stopped
I've been
using
there. I've been
they
there.
stopped using depleted uranium 25 years ago. They went to tungsten because they knew that it had this radioactive problem.
Yeah.
The Russians are acting very, I don't know.
But
I don't
Chernobyl, I
find any
remember
fault in what
Chernobyl in
they're doing,
Sweden. I remember
frankly.
Chernobyl in Sweden. We couldn't drink milk. We couldn't eat meat from the wood. We couldn't even procure champignons. How you call it? Swamps. You pick up in the forests. The small
Yeah, mushrooms.
mushrooms. We couldn't eat anything. So we are near. Russia and St. Petersburg it's 250 kilometers from Stockholm. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very aware about it. You can shout very long from United States, but I'm here near.
I ask people I talk with in Europe what their take is on it. Are they finally beginning to understand that the United States is at fault here, and Britain too, that they provoked this conflict, and it's all on them.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. People don't understand how evil the people here in Washington D.C. are. Not the general population, but the people that gather here.
Yeah.
We joke that the rest of the country sends all of their criminals to Washington D.C. to live to work in the Capitol and to
Like
work
Trump.
in the White
You have
House.
to be pretty enterprising to be working in the Capitol, I think.
Yeah.
Trump syndrome, maybe.
all their psychopaths. Or
Yeah.
if you want to, you could put a sign out in front of the Capitol, asylum for international psychopaths or national psychopaths.
There is something I don't understand. I said, why Americans are so against many countries making war in Afghanistan, making war everywhere. They have been starting war.
Money.
And then they are themselves immigrants.
Yeah.
All American immigrants.
That's the feed. What's it? The feed loop. Feedback loop. Because I did a lot of work in Central America in the 1980s, and that's where it became perfectly evident why these people were coming to the Mexican border. It's because the United States had killed hundreds of thousands in Guatemala, had instituted death squads in El Salvador, had overthrown several governments in Honduras, had fought against and tried to destroy the Sandinistas and all the good they were doing for people. That's why people were leaving, because the United States was making it a hell making it a hell to live there. Sanctions. That's why people come from Cuba. So then these people who are just trying to flee to the belly of the beast, which has destroyed their country, are once again used as pawns for racists and bigots. And then you get Bannon's loop. Here they are. Vote for the most racist motherfucker you can find, like DeSantis, and let's get rid of these people.
I can tell you in Europe, they're a bit laughing about Americans. They think, Europe is 60,000 years old, from the people from the caverns, they was drawing on the wall, and in south of France and everything. They have cool place near the sea, fishing fish and everything. 60,000. And then 350 years here in United States, making so big difficulties for many other countries. They are not. It's not so very popular, America in Europe, really.
Good.
And because of those wars, and because of the first law that you can carry a gun everywhere where you want, and just this, it shouldn't be allowed anywhere.
Yeah. But they only had
They
only had strict gun laws when the Black Panthers started carrying guns.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, that was Reagan too.
Yeah, that was Reagan, man. He was afraid of the Black Panthers.
Yeah.
So I think we have to wrap it up now. But it's been a really good conversation with you guys. We'll have to have another show sometime soon. We went a little bit over our 40-minute limit, but hey, it was worth it, I think.
This was fun.
Can I make some advertisement?
Go for it. Do it.
So I have about 40 albums with Unique Sex Electroacoustic Universal Music, produced by my edition company, Iriarte Art and Music and Film Editions. And there is over 250 videos on YouTube, also art videos with poets from all around the world, from United States, from South Africa, from Australia, and from Europe, Sweden. So have a look in YouTube, have a look in Bandcamp, and yes, and bye.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You've been watching World Inkers Network, and we had Carlo Parcelli and Frederic Iriarte today. So take a look at some of the work on Bandcamp and YouTube of Irrealist Art, and take a look at that company, and find them on YouTube especially. It's got some great material. And if you want to support our program and our programming at New York Parrot, you can PayPal us here at paypal.me/NYParrot. And if you want to be on the program, we'd love to have you as a creative mind. You can get in touch with me, Dustin Pickering, as a guest writer on publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. That dot is very important. It won't go through without the dot. It's just like our artificial intelligence bot. If you don't have it, it's not going to go into the email. So yes, please do remember the dot, publication.worldinkers@gmail.com. Send a headshot, a bio, and if you have a sample chapter, a few poems, whatever it is you're working on, spoken word tracks, we'll get them on the show. We'll put you on, we'll interview you, and we'll spotlight your work, and we'll love to do that. So thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel while you're watching right now. Just hit that subscribe button and be notified every time we come live. You can check out Carlo again at Foreign Policy Review on Thursdays at 11 a.m. Central Standard Time, and this program will run as needed on Saturdays and Tuesdays. So thanks for watching, and have an excellent, excellent day. And remember, the trick to writing is to just do it and get it going, get your pen moving, and get to writing. Thanks, guys, for watching the program today. Go for it.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the Parrot. Parrot TV.